Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to answer any questions that I have, and you may have, about history. Now, Professor Stuffy, welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Very glad that you could make us. Now, the first thing I would like to know, and I think is on everybody's mind here, is history. What is it good for?
What is it good for, you ask? Well, it is very good for telling the history of the world.
Yes, that is true. But can you tell us why should we know anything about the history of the world?
We think we should know the things of the history of the world because when you know the things of the history of the world, you have all the knowledge in the world.
That is technically true. Okay, so let me just ask you a different question. What is the greatest subject in history, and can you tell us why?
The greatest subject in history is the history of science. Because we like that.
Okay. The history of science, you said. Now that's interesting. How does it go?
It goes like this. Begin. Slide 1. In the beginning of time, there were two scientists. They were inventing things. The first thing they invented was a rock. The second thing they invented was a tree. The end.
All right, okay. That sounds reasonable. Now, in a moment, we're going to open it up to our audience, who I'm sure all have lots of questions about history. I have one more question before we do that. Since you know everything about all history, you must know a lot about the history of this particular town, of Groningen. So can you tell us and them something that we might not know about the history of this town?
Something about this history is interesting because the town of Groningen was not built by people. In fact, hyphenated, it was built by squirrels.
It was built by Squirrel. How? I don't mean to question your expertise here, but how does a squirrel build like a tall building? How does that even work?
A squirrel can build things taller than its size.
Okay. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is the moment to open it up to the audience. So if anybody has a question for our three-headed expert, would you please raise your hand if you do? Let's see. Oh, there we go. Madam.
Who killed Kennedy?
That's a very good question. Who killed Kennedy?
Kennedy was killed by a squirrel.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Yes, sir.
Okay. What did they do to the squirrel when he killed the Kennedy?
Oh, we have a follow-up question. What happened to the squirrel after it killed Kennedy?
After the squirrel killed Kennedy, they hung its nuts.
That is quite a horrendous crime, but there is your answer, sir. All right. Do we have any other questions for our three-headed expert? Yes, sir. Well, we have another follow-up question. What happens to Kennedy after he was killed?
He died.
Ladies and gentlemen, our three-headed